Okay, so standard 3 is learning environments, and they want you to work on encouraging positive social interaction, self-motivation, engagement. It also talks about how you create a collaborative learning with the kids. For the collaboration of safe, positive learning environments, I gave you a 4, which is outstanding. I said that, you establish a really positive learning environment and with a lot of respect, like especially at the beginning when you start the lesson, you're like, buenos dias, you're doing greetings with them. So it's not just, okay, let's start. It's actually saying, hi everybody, good morning, Another thing is that you can tell the kids were really comfortable with asking you a lot of questions. So they weren't really, if they didn't understand something, they were, asking clarifying questions, and you were explaining to them, yeah, this is what is needed. I wrote, as an intern, you have very limited access to families, and so even though it's not on the video, I've seen you talk to families when we do dismissal. So you do reach out and make sure that the families is involved in what you're doing at school too. Student-centered classrooms, I gave you a 3, proficient. Again, the way your lesson went, they were able to they were working in pairs, so they were collaborating with each other. But I also noticed that they were asking each other questions. So when someone had issue, they got up and asked another person, and it wasn't disruptive. It was just like, oh, where am I supposed to go? I like the fact that you were the expectation was very clear, and then you ended up just walking around and helping them. So they really had to okay, work on this, listen to recording, and I'll help around and see what's going on. So it's more stripped, it was more student-centered versus you just lecturing and they're just watching you. Managing the learning environment, I gave you a 3. Again, they worked in pairs, but they were also facing forward, so that way they were they were paying attention to you. The one thing that I also thought was really good was that fact that you make them corally repeat after you. When you're saying a word, they have to repeat after you. And then another thing I noticed is you gave very clear directions. So you gave a lot of directions, and then you said, okay, so what I'm looking for is. So you said that directly to let them know that here's the expectation, here's the objective, so that they knew what they were supposed to look for. And then again, having them work in pairs to help each other, and then they also helped other people as well. Verbal and nonverbal communication, I gave that a 2. Essentially because the way I was reading the standard, it talked about the student's cultural background and family's cultural background, and it's kind of one of those things, again, as an intern, it's hard for you to figure, you don't get to talk to the families as much. But I did give you a 2 because you are respectful of the student's background. So you have non-Spanish speaking kids in your classroom, kids who don't know anything about, Spanish at all or the culture at all, and instead of just looking down on them, you're like, okay, well, you kind of answer their questions, and they are, again, you can tell they are really willing to ask you questions, and that's a big thing, because especially since you're the teacher of the classroom, sometimes they shy away and don't want to say anything. And last but not least, the use of interactive technology. So you had the kids use Chromebooks to integrate the lesson. They were supposed to be listening to recordings.
It was in a assessment.
In the assessment.
It's been great.
I like the fact that you monitored the usage of the Chromebooks, so it wasn't just, okay, you do whatever you want. You actually looked around to make sure they were using it responsibly. The one thing that I did point out was that when the internet connection was having issues, the students were helping each other try to connect to the internet, and they're troubleshooting it, which means that it's not something new. They just don't freak out. They use the Chromebooks enough to where they're like, oh, the internet's down. Well, it happens a lot here. The internet's down. Can I go outside? Because it works a little bit better outside. Or can I, where's the Wi-Fi? So to me, that's a whole nother level of
teamwork.
Yeah, teamwork, and just being able to do it themselves. Because even as adults, people can't. The computer crashes and they have no idea what to do.
Yeah.
So it was very apparent that they know how to use the technology in the classroom, and when they have problems with the internet, they knew how they had to connect it. So I gave you a 3. Okay. Because this is global community, so I think I was just But it was really purposeful for their learning. Okay. So I guess for some of the ones, the 3s, the nonverbal one, and I think what's the other one? The nonverbal one, and a lot of it is the family one that reaches the family and the culture. Yeah. I think that's where it's a little harder, especially when you're teaching Spanish, and especially when you're not the teacher on record. Yeah. It's a little harder to touch that, but again, you do touch it with their students and their cultural background. And then for the candidate, I think if you had the assessment did ended up working, I think it would have been a 4. But we had so much issue with that.
I know. I just have a wonder. I don't know if Chacho was you or us, my instructor, about this, because when I was doing their, third grader, I was able to talk to their parents, and even I have speaking. Most of them, they were like Spanish speaking, so they felt very comfortable that we were talking in the same language.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, see, I don't know. I mean, that could be something after your instructor, because I do see you in other settings where you do work with the students and you work with the parents and you do meet with the parents. But then, if I'm just looking at this particular class in general and just this lesson, then it's not. And it's never. And when you do it with the other class, it's not your Spanish class; it's the third grade class, and this is the Spanish class. So I don't. That could be something you can ask, because I just want to make sure that But you still do it. You just, I mean,
it's not directed.
It's not direct. It's not the same thing. Yeah, it's not the same thing. But then we do have Spanish-speaking kids in that classroom too, who, if they don't do well in Spanish and that's the language they speak, then that could be another issue too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Anything else?
No,
that's it.
Thank you.